It's the ranked on ranked SEC showdown we all circled before the season started. Okay, maybe not, but that's what makes this sport so great. We've got number 5 Texas and number 25 Vanderbilt. So here to help us break down one of the biggest games of the weekend, I can say that with confidence, we've got Chip Brown from Horns 24/7 and Robbie Weinstein from Vanderbilt 24/7. Before we get into the questioning, guys, let me tell you a little bit more about this matchup that we don't see very often. It's just the 13th meeting in this series, and Vanderbilt leads it 8-3-1. But Texas, they've been great on the road as of late, winning 8 straight away from Austin. While the Doors, though, get this, have never lost to Texas in their building. They are 4-0. But an important note here, the last time they played at Vandy was a cool 99 years ago. So not sure how much we can take from the history, but let's talk about the here and now. I mean, these teams, they enter this matchup on, I'll call them very different terms. We've got Texas looking to rebound from its first loss, while Vandy could not be feeling any better, ranked and a win away from bowl eligibility for the first time since 2018. So let's talk about maybe the mood among each of these teams headed into this one. Robbie, kick us off with how the Doors are feeling.
Yeah, this is the biggest game in program history for Vanderbilt, and they set that up by toppling Alabama a few weeks ago. They have not lost since. And Vandy, historically, when they line up against these teams that are in the top 5, they've got a big disadvantage at the line of scrimmage. And somehow, some way, with this new offense that they brought in, they've been able to negate that disadvantage a little bit. They did it against Alabama, and Texas is going to be another huge challenge for them. But if they can somehow win this game, Vandy is bowl eligible and honestly, kind of on the fringes of the college football playoff and SEC championship race, as crazy as that is to say.
Yeah, for Texas, this is a crossroad, really. And I know that sounds dramatic after Texas got off to the 6-0 start, but the loss to Georgia, and not just the loss, but the way Texas lost, with Quinn Ewers getting benched briefly in the second quarter for Arch Manning, and then Ewers, coming back into the game, but the offense not being able to do anything with 3 interceptions of Carson Beck. It was just a very un-Texas-like performance. And so now they got to really be laser focused, because they're running into a red hot Vanderbilt team that, is playing with a lot of confidence.
Speaking of playing with a lot of confidence, let's talk about these quarterbacks. We'll talk about Diego Pavia in a second, but let's start with Quinn Ewers. Chip, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but no real quarterback controversy here necessarily. But how has Ewers looked since returning from injury in your eyes?
Yeah, he's not looked good. I mean, against Oklahoma, he was not able to throw the ball down the field. Everything was short to intermediate. I think Georgia picked up on that and said, we're going to blitz him like crazy and see how comfortable he is in the pocket. And he did not look comfortable in the first half. Texas' offense has been very explosive in the passing game, and they did not have any explosive plays in that first half against Georgia when the Bulldogs took a 23-0 lead. So, and now Quinn Ewers knows that he's capable of being benched, that Steve Sarkisian will actually do it because it's happened. So I imagine this is the ultimate wake-up call for Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, it's really interesting to compare these quarterbacks, because Ewers was the 5-star recruit and Pavia was unranked and started at the JUCO level and was even a 3-star transfer this past offseason. But if you look at it, even though he's a great story on all that, statistically, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country. If you look at Pro Football Focus grades and stuff of that ilk, I mean, he's been a fantastic passer, very, very efficient and accurate, other than last week's game against Ball State. And he is a huge pain to deal with in the run game, because he just really knows that offense, and he's a great ball handler. He is a tough runner, and he'll put his shoulder through guys and try to finish through contact. So, I mean, he's been one of the most important players for any individual team in the country, and he's playing really well. You don't expect it when you kind of see him in that 5'10" package warming up pregame, but he has had an unbelievable season, and he's trying to stay hot here.
Certainly fun to listen to his post-game commentary as well. Let's talk matchups here. Let's do Texas offense versus Vandy's defense. Chip, start us off with this Texas offense. How do they match up?
Yeah, I mean, look, if Texas plays the way it did in their last true road game at Michigan, Quinn Ewers was phenomenal. I mean, he, converted third down after third down. He was, 24 of 36 passing, 8 of 10 conversions on third down in the first half alone when Texas took that 24-3 lead. If that's the Quinn Ewers that shows up and this offense goes back to, being explosive in the passing game, then they're going to get off to a good start, and then it should open up the running game. But if the passing game is not on, the running game is not on, as we saw against Georgia when Quintravian Wisner carried it 15 times for 52 yards, and Texas ended up with 27 carries for 29 yards. There was a lot of sack yardage in there, 7 sacks by Georgia. Texas had only given up 6 sacks through the first 6 games of the season. So this offense needs to have Quinn Ewers, completing passes down the field for it to operate the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, defensively, the raw stats look pretty good for Vandy, but I think it's misleading because they play this slow pace on offense and try to limit possessions. In reality, it's not a very efficient defense, and I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Texas because Vandy really struggles in the pass game. The pass rush is below average. The linebackers have really struggled in coverage. And then their depth at cornerback is not very good because they had 2 contributors who were ruled out for the season before the season even started. So they've struggled even against the Georgia States and Ball States of the world this season in pass defense, and they will get starting edge rusher Miles Capers back from a neck injury for this game. But at the same time, I think that they have a big challenge ahead of them in terms of trying to contain these Texas receivers because Vandy, really didn't win the game against Alabama on defense. They won it by scoring 40 points and doing whatever they wanted on offense.
As a fan, I'd be fine with another shootout if that's what we needed to do here. But let's talk about the other side, Vandy's offense versus Texas's defense. Robbie, you talked about how Diego Pavia has had so much success in this offense in particular. So how does that unit match up with this Longhorns defense?
I think it matches up pretty well because nobody has stopped them this season, really. It's a weird scheme where there's some triple option stuff, but they'll also throw it a lot, kind of like what Jamie Chadwell has done at Liberty and Coastal Carolina. They switch sides of the offensive linemen on a down-to-down basis, and it's confusing for teams to go against, especially given that no other team in the SEC runs this offense. So it's not like they were pushing Alabama around in that game. I think they were creating hesitancy in the minds of the Alabama defenders because they're not used to playing against this type of team. So they've got enough playmakers on the outside and enough from the offensive line, but really what makes it work is that Pavia is really a wizard and has been playing in this scheme for a couple of years. Nobody has successfully contained them so far, and so he's going to have a huge talent advantage. But I think there's more to it than that.
Yeah, for Texas, they faced some option teams last year, Kansas State, and they shut them down. Pete Kwiatkowski kind of shifted the entire defense and to get more speed up near the line of scrimmage. And so, look, most of what Diego Pavia does is off script, and that's where it becomes debilitating. If he can, break free from the play call, if it's looking like, he can make something out of nothing and he starts making plays, that's where it gets debilitating for the defense. So Texas has a lot of speed. They've got a lot of, the defense has played really well for Texas this year, played really well against Georgia, collecting 3 interceptions and kind of keeping Texas around in that game, only gave up 3.6 yards per carry. They've got to be on point, using their speed to their advantage and making sure that Diego Pavia has 1 or 2 spies to make sure that he doesn't beat them by himself.
All right, guys, let's keep it simple here. What is the number 1 key to victory for these teams? And Chip, get us rolling with Texas.
Well, every Texas fan is going to say they've got to see the Quinn Ewers, who was, he's won 8 straight true road games as the starting quarterback, including the win at Michigan, where he was just, sharp, super sharp. We haven't seen that since his return from the oblique strain. And, it's going to be interesting if he's flinching and not seeing the field. Does Steve Sarkisian sit him down again and say, you know what, I don't think you're being honest with me about this injury, so I'm going to sit you down, let you rest. There's an off week for Texas after the Vanderbilt game. Obviously, Quinn Ewers does not want that. So everyone's going to be looking for Quinn Ewers to be the elite Quinn Ewers and not the, the flinching Quinn Ewers we've seen the last couple of games.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, Vanderbilt's defense is just okay. So what kind of game is Pavia going to have? Is he going to completely put the team on his back like he did against Alabama and Virginia Tech? And how much does offensive coordinator Tim Beck, who's one of the most creative play callers in the country, how much does he have left in his bag at this point in the season? And how much are they going to be able to confuse Texas? Because if Texas knows what they're doing and is able to play fast, as Chip said, they've got the athletes to really contain Vanderbilt's offense like no other team has successfully done this season. So I think this one comes down to Pavia and what he's able to do.
Love it. So looking forward to this matchup. Thank you both so much for breaking it down extensively for us. You can check out more of their work at these team sites. So keep it locked into Horns 24/7 for all things Texas and Vandy 24/7 for everything you need to know about the Commodores, the two writers you just heard from, and their whole crew. They've got you covered.